And the left is embracing this type of behavior.
We welcome Dinesh D'Souza.
I know I ticked him off. In a certain sense, it's a giant up yours to Obama, and that's why the left is freaking out over it.
Jack Kennedy and LBJ, Clinton, and the double standard from the left.
Yeah, I love how the left does nothing but push the most bizarre practices down our throats and up our tailpipes.
It takes a real man to tackle the hot issues that really matter.
Michael Hart is the man of this house.
Welcome to the Michael Hart Show.
Hello, and welcome in to the February 8th edition of the Michael Hart Show right here on the Heart of America Broadcasting Network. Check us out online if you have not begun your journey with us today at Hart, H-A-R-T, heartofamerica.net. That is your destination for all things Hart, I guess. Of course, you can listen to the podcast there. You can get the archive files there, find out ways to support the program there, and we would definitely appreciate your support. And speaking of support, our friends over at Liberty One Tech are bringing you this edition of the program, as well as our friends at the Land Report. They've got a brand new subscription deal for you. Go over to landreport.com, subscribe for 1 year. Normally $59, but if you put in the code HOA for Heart of America, you get a discount all the way down to $9.99. That is crazy good deal. It's an amazing magazine, a beautiful piece. So if you are a land lover or a land owner, the Land Report is the magazine for the American land owner. So much going on today. Representative John Dingell has passed away. He was the oldest member in Congress, so he is going to be laid to rest here in the next couple of days. It occurred yesterday. In addition to that, we have got Alabama-centric news, as well as the Senate Judiciary Committee has advanced the nomination, the confirmation for William Barr to be Attorney General. That occurred yesterday. We've got more Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez nuttiness and some interesting audio from a couple of different interviews that she has done in the last couple of days. And I'm going to go all conspiratorial here with you in just a moment as it relates to old Alexandria, Sandy, Patty, whatever the hell you're going to call her. Also, the state of Illinois, something that really troubles me beyond just the topical of what this story is all about, as Illinois Democrats are introducing a bill forcing gun buyers to reveal their public social media accounts to police before they are given permission to get a firearm license. The new legislation is sponsored by two state Democrat lawmakers in an effort to block people from acquiring guns if they've made some troubling comments on social media. First off, you don't really have to reveal your social media, since by its very nature, social media is revealing. Now, I do realize some accounts are private, but the reality of it is that is information that is very easily discoverable. But in addition to that, the state representative, Daniel Dedich, who's a Democrat pushing the bill, told a local CBS TV station a lot of people who are having mental health issues will often post on their social media pages that they're about to hurt themselves or others, adding that these people need the help that they need. The bill's proponents point to Nicholas Cruz, the Parkland school shooter, saying he posted very disturbing images on social media before going on a rampage and killing 17 people last year. The Pittsburgh synagogue shooter, Robert Bowers, also posted numerous troubling comments about Jewish people on social media. A similar bill was introduced last year in New York that would require people looking to buy a gun in that state to submit their social media profiles and search history prior to purchase. A couple of interesting points come to mind here. Number one, if you were prone to doing these type of things and you were seriously considering it, would you telegraph that on your social media pages? Number two, if the government was successful in requiring that you reveal your social media pages prior to purchasing a firearm, what other requirements could they impose for your social media? In other words, you're going to have a child, maybe buy a house, whatever. Your health care. All right, there's one. When you go into the healthcare marketplace, and they're going to make a determination what your premium is going to be. But prior to that, you've got to reveal your social media so they can see if you have got one of those funnel hard hats on and you're freebasing beer every Friday night, or chain smoking your favorite cigar or cigarette. Number 3, what if you don't have a social media account? There are a lot of people that listen to this program that do not have social media accounts. There's a lot of people that listen to this program that have limited access to the internet. We know these things because of the contacts we've had over the last several years about people that had wanted to purchase the book but couldn't do it online, or contact the program but didn't have an email account. I met one just 2 days ago, in person. Same thing. So how in the world, in this social media climate that we live in today, can we make your social media accounts a barometer? Now, in addition to that, you remember this was a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was a month ago, where we had the 10-year challenge, where you put a picture of yourself from 10 years ago and a picture of yourself now? Now, let's superimpose Brett Kavanaugh and that confirmation over that. Then let's go over here to Governor Northam in Virginia, as well as now his Attorney General, who's also in hot water. Your social media is a long trail of crumbs of things you've done in the past. Now, I typically use mine to post funny memes or what the woman and I are up to, or, something that might have just caught my eye. I don't post a lot of stuff about my family. I'm not even connected to most of my children on social media. They don't really care what I'm up to. I talk to my kids almost every day of the week, so we don't have to have that interconnection there. The wife, she looks at social media almost every day, but probably posts once every 2 months. But there are people out there that leave these long strings of evidence, these trails, if you will. What about people that might be hyper-political on their social media? Remember the attacks by the IRS some years ago? Was it 3 years, 4 years now? Against the Tea Party groups? Do we really want to start allowing social media to influence our rights in this country? Our constitutional rights in this country? All because some Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez jackaloon thinks it's going to keep people safe, and now he's the arbiter of mental health diagnosis? And where do you draw the line on mental health? There's a big difference between deep-seated depression and occasional melancholy. There's a lot of people in the world that will wear their pain on their sleeves. They went through a temporary health scare, or there's the passing of a loved one, or a rather unpleasant breakup. We all go through them. And then we go through what seems like those obligatory postings about how we are making a comeback and we're healing, and the Lord is making me stronger through the pits of despair because, well, He didn't do me right. Now, all of a sudden, and by the way, not that there's anything wrong with that, but now all of a sudden you're going to have a politician make a determination that you're not in your right mind because your girlfriend left you, and you posted some dark poem you found or online, or maybe a meme to take a swipe at her, and just by coincidence you decided to go out and buy a car, buy a house, buy a gun, and all of a sudden you're emotionally and mentally unfit. This is also kind of harkens back to the health care panels that were discussed in the early days of the Patient Affordable Care Act. Incidentally, social media seems to have two relative emotions that are expressed, pleasure and pain. Here are my pictures from my trip to Rome, and I got to pet a llama. Here's my brand new baby. I'm a brand new grandma. I just got married. And then there are the ones over there of despair. Social media, by its very nature, outside of the political aspect, but maybe even contributing to it, is a very emotional playground. People typically post their pleasures or their pains. Now, they'll also post stuff that's political, but that still falls in the line of pleasures and pains, the things that disturb them. Good grief, you couldn't get away from the Nancy Pelosi State of the Union memes, and some of them were classically funny. Same thing with Alexandria, and there's several out there for the president as well. So do you really want to live in an environment where our rights are literally determined by what kind of mood or emotion we're in? Those of you that are 25, 30, 35 years old, y'all don't remember the old mood rings. God, these things were campy. And you got them on, bought them off TV about the same time you bought the Best of the Beach Boys on KTEL Records, and it was not even the Beach Boys, it was a cover band for $9.95 a month. Good grief, we were gaudy back in the day. But your mood ring would change colors with your mood. And for those of you, asking for a friend, those of you that ever bought a mood ring, how many times did that thing change color in a single day? How many of you ever on social media ever had your Jerry Maguire moment? You know, that bad pizza post? Or the red wine post? Or that Jack Daniels, not that I would do personally, I've just read about it. It happens. And now you're going to have some Democrat or some politician, or for that matter, if you think the Republicans won't exploit it, you're crazier than heck, making a determination if you have the right to defend yourself, carry a firearm, or have a pistol in your home predicated on what you've posted on your social media account. Now, did Nicholas Cruz telegraph? Yes, he did. But others have as well. Nicholas Cruz also was a byproduct of a system that refused to acknowledge the fact they had troubled students within their system. You want to talk about something that got missed? In that county in Florida in particular, they had a stated policy of looking the other way. So don't give me this BS about checking out your social media account. There's a lot of folks out there that have committed crimes that have never projected that, on top of which, evidence that came out not even 2 weeks ago from the FBI. I want to say it was like 2.1% of all crimes committed with a gun in this country were with a legal firearm. And yet we're going to waste resources trying to figure out if you're going to walk into a mall with an AK or a 22 or whatever the case may be, because you found out that your girlfriend of 6 months is really a latent lesbian. Really? Damn, you Democrats. Y'all are one more weird bunch of whack. And talking about whack, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, we're going to break here for just a second, because I'm going to reset. But I had a thought. I had a pondering. Could she be a plant? I don't mean like Rosebush, although she has the IQ of one. I mean a plant. Like some kind of nefarious force, whether it's George Soros or some contingent of aliens from another dimension or even the future. Because it's getting weirder and weirder. And when we come back, we've got some interesting audio from her that is very contradictory. But let me tell you why I'm thinking what I'm thinking. As I went through my news apps and my portals to put together the program today, almost every one of them is carrying an Alexandria Cortez story. I've got Fox, MSNBC, NPR, the Wall Street Journal, which, by the way, the Wall Street Journal had come out with an article yesterday that thinks she is such a jackaloon and her bill so unbelievably, mind-numbingly twisted that the Wall Street Journal thinks the Republicans created her bill as a Democrat parody, that it's an inside job from the Republicans, the whole Green Initiative. But I'm just wondering, here you have this former bartender that obviously either is dumb like a fox or just dumb like a brick. For all intent and purposes, politically speaking especially, she's a child from a very liberal district with some of the most outlandish ideas we have ever heard in this nation's history. No political experience, no political allies, no ideas that are workable, borderline crazy in terms of her ideas. Why is she getting the attention she's getting? From her peers? From the media? If the media was mocking her, it would be different. But there's something about this woman in the last week or so that has really begun to gnaw at me. And I'm starting to wonder, are we missing something here? Because not just what she's saying, things like cow flatulence, which Tony Robbins actually wrote about 35 years ago, believe it or not. Yeah, the motivational speaker. It was in Awaken the Giant Within, one of his books. Not that he's advocating doing away with it. He was just making a point. But she's talking about doing away with air travel, which is an impossibility. Talking about doing away with, and even Mazie Hirano from Hawaii was like, yeah, that air travel thing, that's not going to work. What are we going to do? Canoe back to the mainland? So even her own party, and Nancy Pelosi's coming out and said the same thing as well. But I'm starting to wonder, who benefits the most from some of the initiatives she's putting forth, which are not workable. I'm not suggesting she has some green investors behind her, but there's something else going on here. I can't quite put my finger on it, but nobody goes to Congress that is that far removed from the political process as a newly inaugurated freshman and captures that much attention. It just doesn't happen. There are people out there that can say, this person has got some good ideas, they're an up-and-comer, let's keep an eye on them. I can't figure out if it's because her ideas are so outlandish, or because she is as popular as she is in New York, or because she upended a long-term representative from that state that was thought to be a shoo-in. Can't quite get my head around it. But mark my words, there is more to this than we are currently realizing. I can't quite figure out what, but it's definitely there. I need some coffee. You probably need a break from listening to me rant. Let's take a real quick one together, and when we come back on the other side, she contradicts herself on the role of government in a massive and unprecedented Green New Deal, one that is, made people rich with intellect as it comes into, birthing memes every day by the dozens. Compliments of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Stick around.
Does your home have a water problem? Drainage around your home can cause all kinds of headaches. disease causing mold, cracks in walls, foundation failure, even roof leaks. At Alabama Water Management, we know that problems can often be fixed from where the water is coming from, outside. Our approach is less invasive and less expensive. So before you spend thousands on a potentially unnecessary waterproofing system, call Alabama Water Management for a free evaluation. Alabama Water Management. Don't waterproof, water prevent.
Find Alabama Water Management on Facebook or on their website at ALAH2O.com.
Hey now, it's Andrew McLean here to remind you about my podcast, Over the Line. This is the podcast your mom warned you about, even though your mom doesn't really know what a podcast is. You really need to check it out. We have some great guests, amazing interviews, and we break down the political headlines of the day. If you want to be able to stay informed, entertained, and be able to win an argument on Facebook against those commie hippies, check out OverTheLineShow.com to listen to the latest show, check out some amazing merch, and see what's going on behind the scenes. Over the Line is also available on your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and plenty more to make it as easy to listen to the show as possible. Again, make sure you go to OverTheLineShow.com, sign up for the newsletter, and keep up with the show, whatever we do, wherever we go, and keep yourself informed. That's OverTheLineShow.com. In memory of Harambe, Danny Williams, and Andrew Breitbart.
It's not right versus left. It's us versus them. It's the Michael Hart Show.
Years ago, the state of New York went through, well, it's going through many over the course of the last several years, but it's been some years ago that the state of New York had gone through a very, very, very severe budget crisis. At that point in time, not only did their local law enforcement take a budget hit, a lot of crime spiked, and they had garbage collection problems, and the whole city was just a complete, it was just falling apart, the whole district, the whole region. And, my family is actually from that area, although they've all bugged out in recent years, and not say recent, the last 20 years or so. It's just a ridiculous place to live. But in addition to the budget crisis woes and the agency woes in New York, they also began closing a lot of mental institutions. These people were released to the streets. And there's been a lot of debate over the years as to what effect that had. I think we now know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we now know, because we've got one of the most bizarre politicians in recent memory that is gaining more traction in her first couple of months as a congresswoman that the future president of the United States, and a man that many people thought to be a Manchurian candidate, Barack Obama, was able to accomplish. Now, you think about that for just a moment. There is something very, very weird going on with this situation. Cortez, who announced a sweeping Green New Deal just yesterday that promises to render air travel obsolete and get rid of flatulent cows and ensure economic security for everyone in less than a decade, has contradicted herself in the span of about 12 hours on the nature of the government's role in massive undertaking. Now, cow flatulence legitimately has been blamed, in part, for global warming. And you think the vegan PETA community is not going to be all up on the idea of doing away with cattle raising? No, I'm serious, folks. I am dead serious. There have been discussions in recent years about doing away with cattle ranchers. I kid you not. They will do away with, they will have us all, if they could, walking to school, riding a bike, and living on ramen noodles without even the spice packs, or tofu for that matter. Tofu burgers, they're good for you. Put a little bit of Dale sauce on there, a little bit of mustard. Yeah. And then what comes after that? The uniforms? Everybody has the same profile on their Facebook page? Folks, this is transcendent socialism. It is way beyond it. But it's interesting that NPR host Steve Inskeep asked Ocasio-Cortez yesterday morning about concerns from conservatives that the proposal involves unconstitutional government overreach as well as the unsustainable and dangerous elimination of huge swaths of the American economy. She does realize that much of the West was settled when we brought rail to bear. America, on top of everything else, is a transportation country. We're probably the only country in the world outside of Germany that enjoys driving their cars. I'm not saying there aren't people in other countries that enjoy driving around or taking a ride in the country. But, I mean, our cars are fundamental to our American identity. So we're going to do away with cars. Yep, planes, trains, and automobiles. Out of here. And I'm going to say one reason that people who are politically conservative are skeptical of efforts to combat climate change is that it sounds to them like it requires massive government intervention, which they just don't like. Then he goes on to ask, are you prepared to put on the table that, yes, actually, they're right, and that this requires massive government intervention? Now, I'm going to play the audio for you, but later in the same day, Chuck Todd from MSNBC blamed conservatives for suggesting that she wanted a massive government program. I think one way the right does try to mischaracterize, this is a quote, what we're doing is like through like some kind of massive government takeover. Obviously, it's not that. So in the morning, it is that. In the afternoon, it's not that. Check it out.
Is it how do you envision financing this? Is it all through government? Is it just, how are you envisioning financing it that it doesn't end up with the rank and file tax?
So there's a couple of things. One is that I think one way that the right does try to mischaracterize what we're doing as though it's like some kind of massive government takeover. Mm-hmm. Obviously, what we're trying to do is, well, obviously it's not that, because what we're trying to do is release the investments from the federal government to mobilize those resources across the country.
As you know, Congresswoman, one reason that people who are politically conservative are skeptical of efforts to combat climate change is that it sounds to them like it requires massive government intervention, which they just don't like. Are you prepared to put on the table that, yes, actually they're right, what this requires is massive government intervention?
It does. Yeah, I have no problem saying that. Why? Because we have tried their approach for 40 years. For 40 years, we tried to let the private sector take care of it. They said, we got this. We can do this. The forces of the market are going to force us to innovate, except for the fact that there's a little thing in economics called externalities. And what that means is that a corporation can dump pollution in the river and they don't have to pay for it, and taxpayers have to pay for cleaning up our air, cleaning up our water, and saving the planet. And so we've already been paying the costs, except we have not been getting any of the benefit. And so what we're here to say is that government is not just for cleaning up other people's mess, but it's also for building solutions in places where the private sector will not.
She makes some interesting comment, or weird comment, that the private sector has been dealing with this for the last 40 years. It's 2019. Subtract 40 years, and it's 1979. What happened in 1979 that completely revised the American economy, and all of a sudden, big business and industrialization took over for 40 years and has failed? Has she ever heard of the Industrial Revolution? The innovations that came out of Reconstruction? Obviously a very heavy price to pay, but they did in fact occur. There was more patents developed during the United States Civil War than in all previous American years combined. I mean, out of necessity. America has been moving towards industrialization and corporatization for well over 200 years. So, what's with the 40 comment? She voted for it before she voted against it. Do you see the duality in what is the Democrat mantra? Whoever they're in front of is the way that they deal with their policies. I swear, I'm convinced that if they would speak to an LGBT group, they'd all be gay for that moment. I mean, they'll say anything. Which makes me wonder, how are people in this country taking this woman seriously? Now, I will tell you this. There are Democrats in Congress that aren't. Nancy Pelosi has basically tabled this whole notion. I'm starting to wonder if the press is just jumping on board because it's just so god-awful entertaining. During the State of the Union, and I apologize, I forgot the congresswoman who said it, but during the State of the Union, one was caught, and it wasn't on a hot mic, they could read her lips, where Alexandria Cortez was standing next to her, and this other congresswoman turned around and said, "Watch your ass." She's making some enemies up there. But I don't know if she's making enemies, because she is so aggressive, because her ideas are so whacked, because she's sucking all the media air out of the room. But there definitely seems to be a sense of despair. It's like right before our very eyes, the party is factionalizing while fractionalizing. So bad that the Wall Street Journal, Kimberly Strassel to be specific, issued a critique of the proposed Green New Deal, saying that the proposal reads like a parody of the Democrat Party done by Republicans. In other words, she's accusing the GOP. By the end of the Green New Deal resolution and the accompanying fact sheet, now this is the Wall Street Journal, okay? It's got some conservative leanings, but they ain't got no problem hiring liberal writers. By the end of the Green New Deal resolution and the accompanying fact sheet, I was laughing so hard, I nearly cried. This is out on Twitter, by the way. If a bunch of GOPers plotted to forge a fake Democrat bill showing how bonkers the party is, they could not have done a better job. It is beautiful. The Green New Deal attempts to, of course, radically transform the country, including rendering air travel obsolete, despite the fact that every administration since Kennedy has been trying to figure out how to amp up air travel, and I'm talking interstellar. But now all of a sudden, you've got this Tide Pod eating, Birkenstock wearing, yoga pants missing, intellectual meth head that is now going to do away with planes, trains, and automobiles for the purposes of shoring up the economy. You know something? Let me make an observation for you real quick. Much of the position of the Democrats is equality for all, right? Correct? Okay. If you have two kids, Susie and Sally, I don't know, they're twins. Not that that's relevant. But you have two kids. Susie has 2 cookies. Sally has none. In the old socialist idea, Susie has 2 cookies. Sally has none. Mom intervenes. Mom takes 1 cookie away from Susie and gives it to Sally. That's old age socialism. In the Ocasio-Cortez model, Mom takes both cookies away from Susie and keeps them for herself. Now, under that scenario, are Susie and Sally equal? Do they have parity and equal rights? Is it a level playing field? Yeah, because guess what? Poverty for all is also equality. Which is why, for the last 10 freaking plus years, I have said it.
It's not right versus left. It's us versus them. It's the Michael Hart Show.
It's just the truth, and it's so silly. But this is where we are in this country today. Now, you know, when I was 13 years old, my parents bought me my very first horse. And I've owned, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them over the years. Do not currently own a horse. I'm in the suburbs. And they're a lot of work. I think it was that 2 o'clock trip out to the farm 10 years ago when it was 8 degrees that I had to go hunting my horse to get him inside. That kind of broke my spirit. But I digress. I love to ride horses. I love being around them. I'm comfortable around them. I just like them, you know? But I don't want to have to ride one to work. I don't know what this mindset emanates from. The impetus of it, the inspiration. But doesn't it feel like something's at play here? According to Strassel from the WSJ, the sweeping proposal was hit with mockery once the details were unveiled on Thursday, with many pointing out how unrealistic the suggestions are. Then Strassel goes to point out that in order to live up to the proposal's promise of 100% renewable energy, a space as big as the entire state of California would have to be dedicated solely to wind turbines and solar panels. Do y'all remember some years ago? Oh, was it? It wasn't Kennebunkport. That was the Bushes. Where did Hyannisport. Okay. Do y'all remember some years ago when there was a discussion about putting wind turbines off the coast of Hyannisport and how the Kennedys raised holy hell about it? Can you imagine? Do y'all remember back in the olden days when the internet was first coming online, and we're getting cable TV and satellite and whatnot, those big gaudy satellite dishes that dotted the land? People had them in their backyard. They had them on top of their houses. Luckily, over time, the satellite TV providers were able to figure out a way to minimize the discs. But imagine a world where you've got wind turbines, or turbines, if you prefer, and solar panels on every home or street corner. The proposal suggestion of putting charging stations everywhere, upgrading or replacing every building, and developing high-speed railway across every state, it may also hit a wall due to local permitting. I mean, I'm staying with the Wall Street Journal. I mean, they're having way too much fun with this. Strassel then notes that the Green New Deal is far from just a proposal to curb emissions and create more environmental regulations, but is also about implementing radical left measures. Somehow, government-run healthcare, family sustainable wages, the old FSW, family sustainable wages, paid leave, and affordable housing are also, quote, required for a clean economy. Now, listen to this one sentence, and I got a couple of callers we're going to get to here in a moment. Somehow, government-run health care, family sustainable wages, paid leave, and affordable housing are required. We're reading this from the bill. Are required for a clean economy. She goes on to write, Strassel, I would love to understand this logic and imagine what wages will need to be paid for $1 billion per kilowatt electricity. It's priceless. It's the gift that keeps on giving. 929-477-3761. Kind of flying blind here today, so we'll do a little bit of phone roulette and bring you guys in. Then you're going to have to announce yourself. Good morning. You're listening to the Michael Hart Show. Who am I speaking to?
Hey, Michael, it's Murph.
Hey, buddy.
Obama had a knack for telling you the same stuff that Ocasio-Cortez has been saying, but you didn't come away from what he was saying kind of scared about it. That was my take on that. Obviously, you and I and others are paying attention, so we did get scared about it, but the average person, they felt good about, like you say, when you got to be a salesman and you want to convince somebody that they need to go to hell and they're going to enjoy doing it.
Right, exactly.
And Cortez is so blunt and so direct that it's drawing way too much attention, and they still want us to believe that we have some semblance of control in what we're doing or how we're living. The difference between socialism and communism is one uses a gun and the other one doesn't. So they want us to blindly, just as sheep, walk our way into the rail cars so that they can have control. And if you eliminate automobiles, you have effectively segregated the country and stopped people from traveling, and you can isolate them in areas and control exactly what they do. You control what resources they get and what jobs they get. So it really is all about control, but she's drawing way too much attention way too quick, and I'm amazed they even put that bill up to begin with. That was just ridiculous.
Why do you think she has caught the imagination of so many? Because if she was a Republican saying these things, there would already be calls for her impeachment, because her ideas are just completely in outer space. But why do you think? Because typically when you go off to Congress, I mean, you don't even know where the restrooms are till you've been around for about a year or so. You don't know what in the world is going on. And so I'm kind of curious as to why has she captured the imagination of so many people?
Well, politicians typically will dance around subjects, and they won't hit things dead on, So all of a sudden, here's this politician who's telling the truth. Now, it's her truth. It's from her angle and her aspect of what she wants to do. But instead of pussyfooting around, she's getting right to it. And that's what people want out of politicians on both sides of the aisle. So I think that's probably what's going on here is they're going, ooh, here, finally somebody who's telling the truth. Despite that it's not.
Yeah. Mind blown, Murph. Mind blown.
Well, keep it up, Michael.
I'll try, my friend. Thanks for the call.
Sure.
All right. If anybody else has a Ocasio-Cortez theory, 929-477-3761, because I refuse to believe that people are this ignorant. Not just her, I'm talking about the people that elected her. Because some of this stuff is just whack. In the same day, she says two entirely different things. Now, I know. She's a politician. Get it, got it, been there, got the T-shirt. I'm hearing you. But these two positions are just diametrically opposed. And she is saying anything at any time for any reason. And I'm telling you, I can't put my finger on it. But there's something more going on here. I don't know if she's practicing for a comedy routine or if she's about to break free and write a book. My 30 Crazy Days in Congress. I don't know if she's looking for a husband and just decided to get elected to Congress along the way. There's something. I don't know if she's working for George Soros. But she is absolutely hysterical. Ocasio-Cortez has also, as you're well aware, warned that climate change will end the world in 12 years. She went on to decline to call herself a capitalist, which there is definitely some capitalism behind the rebuilding of the infrastructure of America. When asked by Todd if she considers herself a capitalist, I believe in a democratic economy. But the but is there. But, hold on, wait a second, back up. I believe in this is her quote. I'm just reading the quotes. I believe in America. I believe in a Democrat economy, but the but is whatever. Moving on. Never mind. In what may be the most far-reaching proposal ever to be considered in Congress, Ocasio-Cortez, according to the Times, unveiled the Green New Deal, a government-led overhaul of virtually every aspect of human life that would guarantee a host of taxpayer-covered benefits, all for the phase-out of fossil fuels. Now, I'm sorry, y'all. I mean, I'm really trying to do this with a straight face. Part of her plan to fund the elimination of the airlines by moving over to rail includes heavy taxation of the airlines. But if the airlines are no longer there, how do we tax them? You see where I get the whole time travel thing from? It's like we got to go back in time to tax the airlines back in 1979. Maybe that's the 40-year reference. 1979, get all that money so we can build it. She's going to tax an entity that she wants to tax out of business. Watch the movies. There's 4 or 5 of them. You can find them they're even on your Fire Stick or something, the Roku, Hulu crap. Google Atlas Shrugged. I want to say it's the second one where steel magnate Hank Reardon makes a comment to somebody from the State Science Institute that why am I paying to support and I'm paraphrasing, why am I paying in terms of taxes to support the entity that is working to put me out of business? Atlas Shrugged in this scenario is coming to fruition in real time right before our very eyes. I know I tell you to watch the movie Idiocracy. Okay, it's funny. It really is a funny movie. But if you have any one of these subscription, Amazon Prime or whatever, Google the Atlas Shrugged movies. The only thing that's kind of weird about them is they were low-budget productions, although you can't really tell in terms of the film quality. But the cast of characters, like, Dagny Taggart, for example, a different character in every single one of the movies. A different actress. So that's a little bit kind of hard to follow along. You're not going to get a lot of brand names or high-name characters because, again, they were lower-budget productions. And I had an opportunity to actually be one of the people that consulted on the first couple of them, and they're really pretty fascinating. I didn't do a whole lot of work, but, certainly not credited work, but Harmon Kaslow, I think, is the producer, and I interviewed Harmon several times, and he interviewed me several times as well, so that was kind of an honor. But either way, check them out, because it's happening. It's happening right now, real time. Let's get out to the phones, 929-477-3761. I do believe we have Clark calling in. How are you, my brother?
I'm doing well. You good?
Oh, I'm just juiced up.
Well, there you go. Hey, you ever coming up to Gunnersville?
Actually, I need to be up there in about 2 or 3 weeks for a job, but you're asking me about the camping thing, and believe it or not, I actually went to get my camping equipment this past week out of storage and realized some of it was missing, so I've already replaced it, and I'm looking for a date. Not to go camping, a date.
Yeah. You got my number, right?
Yeah.
Call me when you're headed this way. I live on the edge of that place. All right, so let's go back a few minutes. The hard left proposals, 70% tax rates, wealth tax, the Green Deal, these are going to cause problems for the Democrats because it's going to cause fractionalization. You can see it coming if you're watching. But now, the idea that AOC's Green Plan is a Republican plant, I got to reject that premise on 2 counts there. I really do. Number one, the Republicans have never demonstrated to me that they're that smart. And number 2, I've yet to see them that interested in winning, Michael.
Yeah, well, those are 2 good points, Clark.
I mean, if I thought that they were capable and desirous, I would think that was a really good thing. Give her that idea and let her run with it. But, no, I don't think they're that bright, and I don't think they want to win that much. Oh, I just don't. Atlas Shrugged. Just think if, I have watched the movies. I read the book. It's been quite a while. Got too much on my reading list to read it again right now. Great book. And just think if that movie could be done and have the releases with, the publicity in enough theaters.
All right.
How much damage that would do to the left if we could have wide distribution of that. I don't know. Is there really enough people that are woke enough to get it, I guess, would be the next question.
Well, if you remember from the movies and the book, and the book is a painful read, Clark. I mean, it really is. Rand takes 4 pages to describe a sunset. But if you remember from the book, the Taggart family, what do they own? They own the railways, which is the only viable mode of transportation in the future. And so, literally, you're seeing Atlas Shrugged come into being right before our very eyes, at least on paper.
Well, I will say this. I don't have a vision of our billionaire magnates going and having a secret valley or something and changing things. But, Michael, if we could get enough people that were conservative-minded, that own businesses, to say, you know what, nobody has listened to us. The Republicans give us lip service. The Democrats flip us the bird. But nobody has listened to us. We're not turning the key for 2 weeks. We could show them who built this. And we could show them who runs this. And when, I don't know, about 4% of GDP was gone for the year, and you think of, all the different keys that don't get turned, I think they'd listen to us better.
Clark, I can only hope that you're correct.
Well, how we get everybody together and on the same page there, I'm not sure, but I don't know. Things are going to have to change one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I got to go get after it again. I'm going to keep listening. You keep doing it.
Thank you, Clark. I appreciate the call and the support.
All right. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There's a lot of people out there, and I'm one of them, that's having a lot of fun poking this story. But there's a lot of unfun associated with it as well. And y'all know that I'm a history guy. And I love, when I'm watching TV at night, I'm typically not watching a movie. I watch them every once in a while. But or if I am watching a movie, it's like Atlas Shrugged. Although I have to admit, I do like Stallone movies. But I'll watch the Nat Geo or Discovery Channel, Deadly Storms, Sharks with Laser Beams. I love that kind of stuff. I like learning. I just do. I was never a very good student. But as I got older, I really began to appreciate it a lot. And there's too many people in this world that aren't reading the Atlas Shrugs, the 5,000-Year Leap. They don't care about the movie. And by the way, it is a good movie. There's several. I want to say there's 4 editions, 4 installments. And they really are good. They're just not star-studded. But they're also very scary. And you have to bear in mind that, this was something that I participated in 7 or 8 years ago. And the warnings have been out there for decades. And it's not so much the fact that we're going down this path that has me freaked out. It's how quickly it's happening. Had a conversation yesterday on Thursday evenings. I go and spend some time on Outspoken with Joe Lockett on the Alabama Cable Network. Joe does a great job. He's become a really, really, really good friend. Program's on 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were talking a bit about this whole Joy Behar, blackface thing, and things related to Ralph Northam and Virginia as a whole, et cetera. And we kind of got off into this kind of in the weeds, and this is off the air, by the way, about just how much people's perceptions have changed. How what was commonly accepted years ago is abhorrent and offensive now. But that got us even into a deeper conversation about how that applies not just to race, but everything. Gender, for example. Who would have ever thought that, we're living in a time when a man can walk into a ladies' room completely freely, just walk in and take care of business. Back when I was growing up, if you walked into the girls' room mistakenly, you walked around with a guilty conscience for a week because you saw the yellow toilet paper or the pink fuzzy thing on the seats of the toilets. It's just so interesting to me how quickly that has turned, and how so far removed from reality. Because the Cortezes of the world. I mean, she's fine. She's fun to play with and poke holes at. But it's the people that support her ideas that scare the hell out of me. And, Clark is right. It is a matter of spreading the word and not putting a key in it, as he points out, whether that's your car or your business or whatever, to send that message. For many years, I've preached the fact that, you have a lower class, a middle class, an upper class, and a political class. And the political class is becoming more aggressive, stranger, and less dependable than it ever has in the history of this country. And we have dumbed down the citizens of this country just enough to allow them to get away with it. Quick break. Coming right back. The Land Report, the magazine for the American landowner, is a proud supporter of the Michael Hart Show. Currently, they're offering an exclusive subscription price for listeners of the Michael Hart Show. So click on the subscribe button on landreport.com and enter the code HARTSHOW at checkout and receive a 1-year discount on America's #1 land magazine. You'll get a full year of the Land Report, which normally goes for $59, for only $15. That's a 75% savings off the cover price. Again, that's promo code HARTSHOW at checkout of thelandreport.com, and make sure to check out the Land Report on Facebook if you love land.
Does your home have a water problem? Drainage around your home can cause all kinds of headaches. Disease-causing mold, cracks in walls, foundation failure, even roof leaks. At Alabama Water Management, we know that problems can often be fixed from where the water is coming from, outside. Our approach is less invasive and less expensive. So before you spend thousands on a potentially unnecessary waterproofing system, call Alabama Water Management for a free evaluation. Alabama Water Management. Don't waterproof, water prevent.
Find Alabama Water Management on Facebook or on their website at ALAH2O.com.
It's the Michael Hart Show.
Come again?
The Michael Hart Show.
You know I don't speak Spanish. In English, please.
A liberal dose of conservatism.
How'd you do that? I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
Anyone can tell you the news.
Welcome, Diamond and Silk.
Mark Zuckerberg will end up and it's going to be a face without the book.
Book without the face.
Hey, Megan, how are you?
Now they're chipping away at the normalization of pedophilia, and the left is embracing this type of behavior.
Welcome, Dinesh D'Souza.
I know I ticked him off. In a certain sense, it's a giant up yours to Obama, and that's why the left is freaking out over it.
Jack Kennedy and LBJ, Clinton, and the double standard from the left.
Yeah, I love how the left does nothing but push the most bizarre practices down our throats and up our tailpipes.
It takes a real man to tackle the hot issues that really matter.
Michael Hart is the man of this house.
Welcome to the Michael Hart Show.
All right, over the last several months, there has been a lot of discussion about taxation in America, lowering taxes, Donald Trump's corporate tax plan, et cetera, et cetera. An interesting op-ed that came out, I don't know, like 20 minutes ago, points out that newly empowered Democrats in Washington and state houses across the country are flexing their legislative muscle with a cornucopia, a smorgasbord even, of brand new tax proposals that would affect billionaires and blue-collar workers alike. From D.C. to Sacramento, the controversial levies include everything from a wealth tax to new charges on ammunition and groceries. Some of these are meant as a deterrent against certain kinds of purchases, like guns and ammo, while others intend to help pay for ambitious new programs. Some of the proposals being considered since the start of the new year, Elizabeth Warren, who's about to formally launch her presidential campaign, has proposed a 2% tax on net worth above $50 million and 3% tax on net worth above $1 billion. The proposal is unique in that it targets assets and not income, and has already faced some constitutional questions. While critics note that it would be difficult to enforce, since it would require government to value assets, the proposal would be estimated to affect about 75,000 households. I want to point out something here very quickly. For those who are saying, it can't happen, don't worry about it. Bill Clinton, during his administration, the Clinton administration, had proposed the idea of capping people's retirement accounts. Yes, once your retirement account hit about $1.5 million, I believe that was the number, don't hold me to it, but that at that point in time, anything above and beyond that would go straight into the tax basis because you don't need that much money to retire on. Of course, it got obliterated when it went to Congress. It isn't what passes that scares me. It's what they think. You don't need that much money. Nobody needs that much money. See, that's also one of the tenets in Atlas Shrugged. Shh. Should I just start singing a lullaby? I can't sing, but maybe we can just lull some more people to sleep in this country. I decided yesterday, and I'm not doing it today, by the way, because it would bore you to tears. But when I do it, it'll probably bore you to tears. But I'm going to ask you guys to gather as many people as you can around the computer or your device, your iPhone, wherever you're listening to the program. When one day next week, I'll probably do it either Tuesday or Thursday, where I'm going to read sections of the book The Law by Frederick Bastiat, who detailed exactly what was going on in France. 100 years ago. He called it legalized plunder. Fascinating stuff for those that are into that kind of stuff. Warren has pitched it as targeting those at the tippy top of the wealth scale in order to pay for programs like government-backed child care and more. While Warren targets wealth, other lawmakers have floated the possibility of simply raising the income tax rate for those at the top, according to AOC, who has pitched, although not formally, a 70% marginal tax on incomes over $10 million. The plan is not unprecedented. From 1957 through 1970, the tax rate was 70% or higher. But then again, there was a lot of loopholes that those in the know were able to jump through. Howard Schultz, the former Starbucks CEO, and Michael Bloomberg, both of whom are weighing a presidential run, have hit back. Schultz called a number of the ideas from Democrats ridiculous, while Bloomberg last weekend compared Warren's plan to the type of policy that destroyed Venezuela's economy. Back up. Here we go. A little time warp there. Liberal CEO Howard Schultz and the man that outlawed large sugary beverages in New York. Two of the most liberal people on the planet today pointed out that Elizabeth Warren is a fool. Now, of course, they would also be hit with that tax. But then again, they realize you don't tax assets in America, at least theoretically. Oh, my goodness. Schultz went on to say we need a healthy economy, and we shouldn't be embarrassed about our system. Warren tweeted, billionaires like Howard Schultz and Michael Bloomberg want to keep a rigged system in place that benefits only them and their buddies. And they plan to spend gobs of cash to try and buy the presidency to keep it that way. Not on my watch. Anybody want a beer? Okay. What is this rigged system, man? I want to say, according to an interview that Schultz did a couple of weeks ago, isn't there somewhere in the neighborhood of like 30,000 Starbucks across the country? His story is very much, it's very inspiring, actually. It's very much a rags to riches story. And he worked his A off. He actually sold coffee to the very first Starbucks and eventually bought that particular store out in, I believe it was it's either San Francisco or Seattle. And worked and built and worked and built and worked and built and worked and built. Obama didn't even help him at that point in time. He wasn't there to say, you didn't build this. So how is that rigged? I'm just curious, Lizzie. You need to stay the hell out of the firewater, girl. In California, with a supermajority in both houses of the state legislature and a new governor who wants to take a firm stance on gun control, California lawmakers are hoping to pass Assembly Bill 18, which, amongst other things, looks to tax the sale of handguns and semi-automatic weapons in order to generate funding for gun control programs. The bill, which was sponsored by Democrat Assemblyman Mark Levine, not that one, would implement an excise tax on the sale of handguns and semi-automatic rifles and then hand over the resulting revenue to the California Violence Intervention and Prevention Grant Program. Oh, my God. Short for CalVIP. Yeah. The gun tax legislation has, unsurprisingly, drawn heavy criticism from gun rights and hunting groups. Out in Connecticut, more gun stuff. Yeah, a Democrat Connecticut state legislator introduced a bill this past Monday that would raise the tax on ammunition in the state by 50%. Currently, ammunition is taxed at the same rate as other products, but we want to increase it by 50% because we see it as a prevention measure. This, according to Jillian Gilchrist, in a video posted on Twitter. For example, if someone were to buy a 50 cartridge box of ammunition, which goes for about $10, it would increase the price to $15. How many people out there were smoking back in the days when everybody smoked, and a pack of cigarettes was 50 cents? People saying, if it ever hits $1, I'm giving it up. Well, now what's a pack of cigarettes? $5, $6, $7? In New York, I think it's 15. How many people smoke? Now, arguably, people are smoking less. But that's been more on health revelations than it has been taxation. So we're really going to believe that people are going to stop buying ammunition because it goes up a few dollars? Yet another wackadoodle out there that thinks she knows what she's talking about. But let's talk about one that really does affect a lot of people. Also in Connecticut, along with the tax on ammunition, Connecticut is also looking into a possible tax on groceries and prescription drugs. Ned Lamont, who is the Connecticut governor, is considering including the tax as part of his administration's first budget proposal due later this month. While the details of the possible sales tax are unclear, a local report stated that the tax, if implemented, could be set at the current 6.35% sales tax or limited to 2% as recommended by the Fiscal Stability Commission. Sounds kind of like State Science Institute. Get it? Yeah, right before our very eyes. Hey, y'all look over here. Don't pay any attention to what's going on over there. Because you know what? We're off to see the wizard. Even the consideration of such a tax is sparking a backlash against the government and the governor, for that matter. People throughout Connecticut are bracing themselves for their financial plans so they can manage the brunt of Governor Lamont and Democrat lawmakers in the new taxes and proposals. In New Jersey, residents could be hit with what Republicans are calling a rain tax. This is a weird one, too. This, according to Governor Phil Murphy, if he signs the newly passed legislation. The bill, approved by the New Jersey Assembly and the Senate, would allow municipalities to create utilities that collect fees from homeowners and business owners that have large parking lots. You heard me. Parking lots and driveways that are paved. During storms, rainwater mixes with pollutants on those surfaces before running into sewers and drains. The funding from these fees could be used for upgrades to reduce the impact on the environment. With all the salt that we've had on the roads recently, all that's running into the sewer system, so you can't ignore the problems just because they don't go away. That, according to the New Jersey Senate President Steve Sweeney. The bill would also establish a clean stormwater and flood reduction fund, which would be used for stormwater utilities in the state, as well as water quality monitoring, pollution reduction projects. So, in other words, don't have a parking lot. In Nebraska, Tom Breeze and Court Friesen have introduced two bills that, if enacted, would amount to a 345% increase in the tax on beer, wine, and liquor. While the lawmakers contend the tax would only amount to about a 10-cent increase in the price of a mug of beer and is part of the solution to lowering property taxes on state farmers, brewers in the Cornhusker State are not happy. Okay, is part of the solution to lowering property taxes. Okay. Yeah, according to Gabby Alaya, we're really scared if this passes. It will stop the growth of this industry. She told the Nebraska Craft Beers Guild, other states that have high taxes don't have as many breweries. It stops people from wanting to invest and expand. Those are just few of the little tax, little trinkets out there that government is tinkering with throughout the land. Tax on beer, tax on liquor, tax on rainwater and parking lots, tax on groceries and prescriptions, tax. It's all over the place. And on guns and on ammunition. You know, tax it. If it feels good, tax it. And believe me, the time is coming when that's going to happen too. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. You ready for some love? Oh, I haven't paid my taxes yet. Yeah. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Do me a favor. Share the program. Tell people about what we're doing here. We're trying to educate folks to the best of our ability. Malapropping is free. And all the other things that we want to accomplish, we would appreciate you considering supporting the program by going over to Hart, HART, and clicking on the Patreon button. You can do it for as little as $1 a month. It really does help, folks. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but it really does help because we do want to continue to spread the message of what's going on in this nation and the many, many, many challenges that we're facing. We really are going down that rabbit hole. And if the Ocasio-Cortezes of the world don't prove that, I don't know how to convince you otherwise. If we are going to allow this to continue to happen, then we are all going to wake up in a day. And by the way, for those of us that are 40, 45, 50 years and beyond We're not going to see a whole lot of changes over the course of the next several years, but the reality of it is our children are going to inherit a world, and their children are going to inherit a world and live in a world that we wouldn't have recognized, let alone the founding fathers. We've gotten into a place that they wouldn't recognize 50, 60, 70 years ago. But it's coming. And, you know, there have been several people that have spoken to Donald Trump and his claims that America would be a socialized country, but that we already have so many socialized programs and policies that we already are a socialized country. And I'm not going to necessarily dispute that. But the bottom line is, you know, we appreciate your ears. We appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you laughing along with us and being upset with us and enjoying our rants with us and our coffee time together. But don't just let this, you know, hang there. Don't just be a consumer of talk radio. Do something with what you hear. Do something with what you learn. Because just like everything else in America, it's got to be paid for. And right now, we're the ones doing it. We do have some help, but we're asking you to join us in this battle. Not just to put a few dollars in the bank, but to help us grow and expand so that we can get more of the message out to people throughout this country that our country is being stolen from us, that we are losing it. Because at the end of the day, how are we going to explain this to our kids? How are we going to explain that we stood idly by and allowed their future, their birthright, to be robbed from them by allowing some despotic criminals that have no idea how the world really works, who are more interested in their own power and influence and padding their own pockets? We allowed them to take their birthright away from them by our willingness to stand idly by and not scream it from the top of our lungs and the top of every hill. Support us any way that you possibly can, and share the program. Please tell somebody what you've learned about the program, because remember, at the end of the day, if we don't stop cow flatulence, we will no longer have an America. It's important. It's very important that we put an end to cows farting, lest we create a world that we no longer recognize. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back with you live Monday on Heart of America on the Heart of America Broadcasting Network.